Great to be here.
This latest bombardment, Bill, comes after Moscow rejected Ukraine's suggestion that peace talks could begin next year with Zelensky's 10-point plan. How much does this end any hope of realistic talks aimed at ending the war?
Well, from my perspective, there's no realistic possibility that this war ends unless there's only two scenarios that it would end. Either Russia wins the war, which we hope won't happen, and it probably won't happen, or Ukraine wins the war. Neither side has any capacity to negotiate. Putin started this war, and from his perspective, any negotiation looks like weakness, and any weakness would end up him losing his position as president of Russia. And if he loses his position, he ends up going to jail and probably dying. On the other side, Russia has committed such unbelievable and terrible war crimes that there's no way that the Ukrainians have any capacity to give up territory or make any concessions to Russia. And so we're in this situation now where Russia cannot win militarily. We've seen the Ukrainians put up an amazing fight. They've done so because of their bravery, and they've also done so because of great equipment being provided by the EU, UK, and America. And so Putin can't win militarily, and all he can do now is basically try to destroy Ukraine, make it uninhabitable. That's his only strategy. And to carry on in a way that he creates more refugees so the West becomes tired of supporting Ukraine. And so this is, but for what it's worth, this is not a new strategy. Every other war he's ever fought, he just does what we call scorched earth. He did it in Chechnya, he did it in Syria, and now he's doing it in Ukraine.
And yet, earlier this month, we heard from Putin that he was was open to talks on a possible settlement. He suggested there was a willingness to return to diplomacy. Was that insincere?
That was just completely insincere, a total lie. He's not open to any talks, and for what it's worth, I've been in a conflict with Putin over the murder of my lawyer Sergei Magnitsky for the last 13 years, and they make all these insincere statements all the time without any intention of doing whatever they say. It's just part of their modus operandi to say things to confuse people, to try to get the apologists, the Western apologists on their side, saying, "Look, why are you supplying arms? They're ready to negotiate," etc. It means nothing, and one has to understand that Putin has no reverse gear. His only way is forward. His only way is to escalate. And the only way this thing is going to end is if Ukraine beats Russia, beats them out of their territory.
How concerned then, Bill, should we be to be hearing President Putin talk of this promise of a growing military cooperation with China in a bid to push back against the influence of the US and European allies like Britain?
Well, I mean, he's going to try to have a growing military alliance with anyone who would be his military ally, but what's in it for China? China doesn't get anything out of this war. This war is a total, absolute disaster for Russia. China doesn't want to have all of their companies sanctioned. China doesn't want to end up in a conflict with the West, and so we haven't seen China supply any military equipment to Russia. All we've seen is Russia going to Iran and going to North Korea for their weaponry, and so I don't see it coming at all.
When it comes to what's in it for China, Putin says that Russia is one of the leaders, as he puts it, in supplying oil and gas to China. Is that what's in it for China?
Well, China can get the oil and gas without supplying any weapons, and that's what they've done so far. And for what the way I look at it is that in order for the Chinese to get more gas, it's going to take 10 to 15 years of building pipelines. You can't just put it on a ship and send it out. And as far as oil is concerned, we've also put a restriction on oil exports from Russia, saying that no ship can be insured leaving Russian ports unless they're selling oil below a certain cost. And so it's a tough situation for Russia. They're not going to be able to get their oil out to China in a way that they're going to somehow change China in any dramatic way. China is getting what it can from Russia, but absolutely they're not going to supply weapons because they don't want to be on the other side of Western sanctions.
On the point of supplying weapons, we've been hearing of Russian attempts to get weapons from Iran, from North Korea. How important are those international relations to the Kremlin?
Well, I mean, at the moment, Russia is running out of bullets. They're running out of bombs. They're running out of drones. They're running out of everything because of the sanctions. They don't have technology to make stuff. They've used so much equipment. they've had so much equipment destroyed, and so they're desperate for any type of military hardware. And the only two countries in the world that will provide that hardware are the two countries that are already on everybody's sanctions list. That where they have not, where North Korea and Iran they've got nothing to lose. They're already so sanctioned that anything that they do further is not going to worsen their situation. And the only question is, do they have enough stuff to supply Russia that's going to make a difference in this war? And I think that most military analysts say no, that they're not really. The stuff that's being provided is harmful to Ukraine. It's a pain. It's difficult. The drones, for example, are coming in on a daily basis and bombing things, but they're also, the Ukrainians are shooting down 70, 80, 90% of these drones now.
Bill, we're speaking just days after another mysterious death of a high-profile Russian figure, the sausage tycoon Pavel Antov, who was found dead at an Indian hotel 2 days after a friend died during the same trip. Several high-profile Russian tycoons have died in mysterious circumstances since the war began. What's going on here?
Well, I think the exact number is 23 of these people have died, and what you have is massive infighting in Russia as this war continues, as the economic pie decreases. And I don't believe that any of these people have been sanctioned because they're pro-war or anti-war or anything like that. I mean, I'm sorry, killed, not sanctioned. But the reason why this is happening is that these people are sitting in front of money that somebody else wants, and when the economic pie is so shrinking, people start killing for money, and there is just a sort of lawless, murderous free-for-all inside of Russia because of that, and I believe many more people will be assassinated. And by the way, these 23 these are just the high profile ones. We don't know about the medium and lower profile ones, and I would imagine that hundreds of people have been murdered for money and situations and conflicts connected to the lack of economic flows that are coming into Russia because of sanctions right now.
Yeah, that's a very good point, in fact, that the people we know of are high profile. We don't know of the others. Can I just ask a final thought from you, Bill, on the comments we're hearing from some international leaders on Russia's targeting of energy facilities, of energy infrastructure in cities across Ukraine, whether that could amount to a war crime? What are your thoughts?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Russia, everything that they've done amounts to war crimes. The rape and mutilation and killing of civilians in Bucha and in many other cities as they've withdrawn, the bombing of energy infrastructure, the bombing of civilians, the bombing of maternity hospitals, the bombing of kindergartens. There's so many different ways in which war crimes can be established, and they've already committed. And I think it's just a matter of time before that Russia has to face justice in this situation. There's no question.